have some slides to put up. And then at the end, if there's questions, we'll stick around to answer those. If you have any of that, that's not a problem. All right, so Howard, why don't you take it? Let me start the screen share so they can start seeing the presentation, and click on this one. Come on. Boom. There we go. Okay. So.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Our pleasure to be here tonight. As you know, I'm Howard, WB2UZE, and we thought that for a presentation on CW to your group tonight, we talk about how to learn and have fun with Morse code. I think somebody has to mute there. I'm getting a little bit of an echo. I think maybe Jürgen has to mute. There you go. Thank you, Jürgen. Okay, so learn and have fun with Morse code. That's what we're going to talk about. So Rich, how about the first slide?
You're muted,
Okay.
Rich.
Yeah, Rich will have to unmute. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm unmuted now.
All right. So what's the attraction of CW in today's high-tech world? Why would anybody want to do CW when there's wonderful modes out there like FT8? Well, you know, we asked this question to all the members that come into the club, and it comes down to some repetitive responses, which are interesting. One of the things that drives the resurgence in CW is that it's no longer required for the licensing. Now, if you guys are my age, you'll remember back in the day, we had to be at 13 words a minute to get our generals, right? Well, when they took that away, we kind of thought that maybe CW would disappear, but it's had the opposite effect. Without being forced on people, they're very curious about learning this vintage mode. And, you know, at the same time, when life revolves around something like this all the time, people get a little bit tired of constant technology, and it's kind of romantic to be able to use a vintage mode like CW. Another thing that's driving in demand is that the young people are going out and doing a lot of summits on the air and parks on the air, SOTA and POTA. Now, we all know that CW is really a lighter, less complicated rig. And if you're going to climb up on a mountain, you'd certainly be happier to take that up with you than a heavier sideband rig, or even computers that you would need to run digital. And plus the CW rig will get out better with compromised antennas. So as far as SOTA and POTA, it's bringing people into a lot of interest for CW. Now, FT8's a fantastic mode. It can do a lot of things. It can copy signals down at -24, but a good CW operator can hear CW signals at -24. And the big difference between the two modes is that with CW, your mind is doing the decoding, while on FT8, it's really the computer. So those are some of the reasons that are driving it, and it's very nice for us to see the younger people wanting to learn this. What's next, Rich?
Learning CW. This is the program that we have when we first got the club together. Was we decided we would try to train some new CW operators, that there'd be more operators come field day and events like that, when CW operators tend to be in demand, at least locally. And we decided to try to do it on video or online, as opposed to having a building to go to. And we based most of the learning around the G4FON software that runs on Windows. But that's basically using the Koch method, which is learning the order of letters that was Mr. Koch came up with a random order of letters that were not alphabetical. The letters that you learn are not in a relationship to one another. Like, you don't learn all of the DIT letters first and the DAL letters like E, I, S, H, 5, things like that. The order was randomized and then fixed. It makes it easier to remember the patterns and the unique sound that each character has. And he started out with just 2 characters at a time, sent at 20 words a minute. And when you master those, you keep adding the next character in the order, in the Koch order. Now we also use Farnsworth, which is a spacing to add in between the letters as you learn them, so that you're listening to the characters at 20 words a minute speed, but there's enough space in between, so when you hear a word or a group of characters, it's overall the equivalent of 5 word a minute code. So that the reason that I really feel that this is good, and it's been very successful for us, is if you listen to Morse code at 5 words a minute, like many of us did initially to get our novice license when that was required, Morse code at 5 words a minute sounds completely different than it does at 15 words a minute to get your general, or 20 words a minute to get your extra. And you almost have to relearn it each time to increase. So if you really want to try to learn it at the speed that you ultimately want to operate at, and 20 words is a good round number. If you can master it at 20, you can certainly slow down and work a slower operator, but it's much more difficult if you're only comfortable at 10 words a minute to try to speed up and make a contact at 20. Speeding up is a lot harder than slowing down. So, and listening to it at the higher speed at 20 words a minute or higher, it's hard to count the individual dits and das. So you really just start to learn to recognize the pattern and the rhythm that each character has, and that's an important thing. We push the students to start making QSOs as soon as possible, and it's really, the classes here is just putting in the time. When you come to the classes, we give you tips and hints and that, particularly in the beginners classes, but it's the practice time that you put in and the desire that you have to want to learn that is really going to be successful for you. And we've seen a lot of different things that might trip you up, and we try to help you avoid them or get you through that when you hit them. You have anything else on that, Howard?
Well, I agree with all of that, Rich. And what we're saying these days is, this doesn't really matter to us what method you're learning from, as long as you get on the air within 3 or 4 months, because that is the glue that makes all of your learning coalesce together. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on further. Okay, Rich, what's next? Okay, straight key versus keyer. What should you use? I know this is a favorite subject of Rich and I, and this is the way we feel, okay? I always say, if you put this question out on a forum like QRZ, or you get involved with a bunch of hams discussing this, you're going to get thousands of answers of what's right and what's wrong, but this is our take on the matter. When you use a straight key, your mind has to communicate all the way down your arm to your hand and to your fingers and tell your fingers what to do. We believe that it makes a better mind-hand connection using a straight key. When you're using a keyer, the machine is actually making the dashes and the dots for you. It's a whole totally different experience. So we feel that at least up to 18 words a minute, which is about the speed that you start knocking on the door of head copy, that you stay with a straight key. Now, are we cast in stone on this particular viewpoint? The answer is no. The decision is up to you. If you want to do a paddle and keyer, that's fine. And in some cases, we recommend that if there's injuries like carpal tunnel or something wrong with your arm, it might be better to use a keyer. Now, when it comes to bugs and cooties, we feel those are very sophisticated and somewhat complicated instruments to learn. Those two we prefer you put off until you're proficient at about 18 words a minute. What do you say, Rich?
I agree. And Howard was saying, CW is all about timing, and the spacing between the dits and das in each character are very important. If you're using an electronic keyer to learn the code on, it is possible to do that, yes. But if you're using a straight key, you are controlling every single dit, da, space, and the length of all of that. So if you learn it and you can get comfortable sending at 15 up to 18 or even 20 words a minute with a straight key, you're not thinking about the characters anymore. It's become subconscious at that point, and that's the important thing. And you've developed a really good foundation for your CW path that you're going to be on. And at that point, you can then, I would suggest, try other keying methods if you want. Some people will first shy away from a straight key. Oh, I don't like that, or I got to get the fancy paddles. But I think there's something very nostalgic about it, but there's also something very basic, that if you can control that and send readable code that other people have no trouble understanding when you're transmitting on a straight key, then you'll make a much easier transition to paddles or bug and other cooties, other types of keys.
Okay, what's next, Rich?
Fear of CW.
Why don't you take that?
All right, and this is a big thing. We see this with almost all new students. They want to learn, they see the fun other people are having, and they come to the classes, and then you try to get them on the air, and you listen to them during class, and they're sending great, they're copying great. Well, did you make any contacts yet? No, I'm afraid to get on the air. Well, what are you afraid of? I mean, you spent all of this time to try to communicate with other people using a new language that you just learned. And it's a great language to use on the air. We see this a lot, and we understand it. We try to get the students on the air as quick as possible, particularly if you come into one of Howard's classes. If you try to just sit in the back and say, well, I'm just listening, he usually ropes you in anyway, and before you know it, you've made maybe your first DX contact or your first contact, whatever, of all times. So, but breaking that fear and getting on the air and actually making a contact, yeah, you're going to be nervous, but the first time you do it, the thrill is going to be incredible. So, we're going to coach you through that. You're going to learn all of the different protocols, what to say, how to respond when you hear your call coming back, not to freeze up, and just enjoy it. So it's, you should not be afraid to get on the air.
Well, we've learned very quickly about this fear of CW. Rich and I never really knew anybody had fear of getting on the air. I mean, we got our licenses years ago when we were kids, and when you're a teenager, you're not necessarily scared of doing something like this. But we learned that this is definitely an issue, and we structured the club accordingly to combat that with classes that go over everything you need to know before you get on the air, and we're on Zoom with you at the same time when you're making your first QSOs, and right there with you, almost like we were right in the shack. And many of the activities and classes and discussions we have deal with this, because it's a very significant issue when it comes to CW. Okay, Rich.
Getting on the air and QSO protocol.
All right, Rich, you want to talk a little bit more about the protocol there?
A lot of people, when they learn the code and then they're not sure what to do to get on the air, or they know how to call CQ and put their call sign after it, but then when somebody comes back to them, they're like, okay, now what do I do? They just they freeze up, or they just don't know what to say. And we go through that and we practice the protocol, but typically, you're going to send CQ maybe 3 times and your call sign 2 or 3 times after that, and then you're going to sit and listen and see if somebody comes back. If you only hear a partial call sign, we teach you how to call somebody or answer somebody if you didn't get their whole call sign. We're going to teach you how to fix a busted call, where if somebody answers you, but they get your call wrong. You have to make sure you fix that, so that they understand what your call sign is, and that there's a definite way how to do that, and a proper way, or a way that most people would expect. It's not difficult, but we go through the normal, typical exchange. When you go back, you're going to send the signal report, your name, and your QTH. Those are the first 3 things that you're going to get across. Then when it comes back to you, if you want to keep it going a little bit, then you can send back, radio here, rig here is, antenna is, power is, that kind of stuff. It might end after that, and that's fine. or it might keep on going and develop into a rag chew. I've had, and what I enjoy most in CW is long rag chews on the air. I've had CW contacts that lasted well over an hour or 2 hours with one person, just chatting about everything under the sun. And that is a lot of fun to me. And it doesn't matter if they're down the street or on the other side of the world. But we're going to get you over that the fear. We're going to get you comfortable with the CW protocol is. The order that you should send things in to make things go smoothly, and how to get on the air and how to fix a situation, like I said, with busted call signs in either direction. So you shouldn't have to worry about that.
Well, that's right, Rich. And the reason we have this image up here of back and forth, the musical image, a good CW contact has a very vibrant back and forth between the two operators. It's like a dance or a tennis match that you see and hear, where it's really going back and forth, and the players are really in sync with each other. When the two operators are doing that same thing, it's really a beautiful thing, and it's almost melodic. Okay, Rich.
Okay, head copy.
All right. This is my baby here because I teach the head copy, as a matter of fact, tonight at 10 o'clock every Tuesday night. And I teach it in the way that I actually do it. I talk about this a lot. There's really nothing to me that I've ever seen that made sense on the internet or anyplace else on how to teach head copy or how to learn it. So I teach it the way I do it, and that involves approaching CW in a multifaceted way rather than a monochromatic way, like listening to CW from computer generated code, which is like sent to you very cleanly at 700 hertz. I believe there's 5 pathways that you use for head copy. The weakest pathway is just the tone to get it into your ear. Now, some people talk about instant recognition of letters and words, where you recognize like THE, like the way that sounds. But to me, that's still outside your head and just in your ear. Once you have the CW in your head, you have to put it on some sort of moving conveyor, just like this ticker tape here. Just like the ticker tape you'd see on CNN at the bottom of their news program. And you place the decode there because it's moving, and you have to have something that moves along with it rather than a stationary blackboard, so to speak. Another thing that I talk about is that I embrace the vibrations of the CW. CW, to me, gives off vibrations, and I put those vibrations in an imaginary way right on my chest here, and I'm receiving the CW vibrationally at the same time. I also envision the CW broken down into visual dots and dashes. All of these things are being done in my subconscious mind, and I use my conscious mind to tie it all together, along with some other aspects, 2 other pathways, which we don't have time to talk about here today. And I try and teach this through various drills, how to keep CW in your conscious, so that subconscious, that you'd actually be able to be decoding and take a phone call and talk at the same time, or read a newspaper. And these are the things that we discuss in head copy. Now, can we expect everybody to be able to do this? The answer is no. I've been doing CW for 57 years, and my white matter pathways to my brain for CW formed when I was a teenager. Can somebody do this when they're 50 or 60 years old, just starting out? Remains to be seen. But there have been some students that have told me at times that some of these pathways actually have come to them. So it keeps encouraging me to teach that way. It's a very cerebral way of doing it. Okay, Rich, what's next?
Increasing speed. A lot of people when they learn CW, maybe they go out and they buy a nice set of paddles, and they got their keyer all set up, and they practice, and they're sending really really fast, and they learn the code, and they get on the air, and they start calling CQ at a speed considerably faster than they can comfortably copy at, and that's a bad thing. It happens to a lot of people, but accuracy is always much more important than speed. You do not want to rush up to it. The speed will actually come naturally as you start making contacts, but you want to send at a speed that you can comfortably send without errors. I mean, making a few errors is okay, but I'd much rather listen to a person send at 10, even 8 words a minute or 5 words a minute, but not making any errors, as opposed to someone who's sending at 20 and making an error in almost every single word they send. That gets really tiring to try to listen to. So just relax, understand what your receive speed is, and don't surpass that. You know, they always say don't drive faster than your guardian angel can fly. It's a similar type of thing. You don't want to get on and just go zipping along. When you're sending, you know what it is you're sending, so it's very easy to send faster. You're not decoding it. You already know what it is, and you're just sending it out there. But when you have to decode an incoming stream, that's a different story. And that's always slower than what you're able to send at. So make sure that you don't send faster than you can comfortably copy. If you get in a situation where maybe the other station is sending faster than you can, maybe it's one of your first or half a dozen QSOs in, you're still nervous about this whole thing, and it's affecting your copying speed, there's nothing wrong with asking the other person to repeat something. Okay, this is a hobby. We're doing this for fun, and you have to keep it fun. All right, don't let it get you so frustrated. So, and don't try to push yourself faster until you're ready for that. And as I said, the speed will naturally come up as you start making contacts. Once you get the characters down, you're good with the 40 characters, and you get on the air and you start making contacts, even if you just make one contact a day, you will see a tremendous increase in your ability, and your speed will start taking off. So don't be in a hurry to go fast, okay? Learn it cleanly and send it cleanly, and speed will come. What do you have on that, Howard? Anything?
Yeah, well, you know, as far as speed goes, we don't really push speed in the Long Island CW Club, but if you want to get up to speeds above 20 words a minute, we have the classes to do that. And if you don't, there's plenty of activity in the bands between 10 and 15 words a minute, you know, on the upper sections of the band, just below the FT8 frequencies, and you'll be very happy and have plenty to do. Okay, Rich.
Okay, challenges.
All right, so challenges. This means we're halfway through, and we're going to discuss overstudies, errors, the famous plateauing, sending, and expectation management, which is a military word that Jim W6JIM, who usually does this presentation with me, has coined, and we'll talk about that. So let's get going, Rich.
Okay.
Overstudy, Rich. Why don't you take that?
There's lots of different websites, such as Learn CW Online, LCWO. There's a ton of different apps for computers, for cell phones, for tablets that you can use. We get asked a lot, well, we see, you mentioned G4FON a lot, the G4FON COTS trainer. Is that the only thing you use? No. We do use others while we're teaching. Most of the teachers do use either G4FON or CW Player, which is another excellent program written by a French gentleman. But you don't have to be able to run that yourself at home to take the classes. When you're practicing, any app that you find or website that uses the Koch order of letters, and LCWO, while they have their own order of letters for their method, that you can choose the Koch order for there as well. The only difference there is instead of writing down what you hear, you have to type it in on the keyboard. If you're fine with typing, that's not an issue. But any of the apps that will use the Koch order will dovetail just perfectly in with all of our classes. You know, we don't require a specific software package or anything like that. Any of those apps that you can use. The line there, don't be a professional student. That's where we encourage you to join as many classes as you want. We don't assign you to a specific time slot or a specific instructor. We have over 4 dozen instructors. Many of them have been students and enjoyed it so much that they want to expand on that, and they've been helping. Not everybody comes and joins the club as beginners. We have some high-speed members that are upwards of 40 and 50 words a minute and get on the air every day at those speeds. So that we have the whole gamut there, and we have RF engineers and people come in to do talks. So take as many classes as you want, but still, once you get to the basic 40 characters, as we had mentioned, you got to get on the air. Don't just keep taking classes, and not get on the air. That's the whole purpose of taking the classes, so that you can get on the air and make contact with people. So.
And that's right, Rich, because people think that they have to be perfect in CW before they get on the air, and that's not the case.
That's right.
You really
We're not
don't.
sending missile coordinates back and forth here. This is all for fun. It's a hobby, okay? People learn at different rates. That's true. And you might, if you join up the club and you start taking classes, you might see someone else in a class that seems to be picking it up quicker than you are. Don't be discouraged by that. Everybody has their own rate for learning things and their own way of studying in their own. So just stick with it. This is not something that this is definitely something that you can do. Let's put it that way. So if it takes a little bit longer, that's fine. But we don't want to see anybody get through the cracks. We'll work with people one-on-one. We have a lot of different small groups. Sometimes students in a class, a couple of them really like getting together, and they practice on Zoom on their own in addition to the classes, and that's all fine. But take the classes, learn from it, and then get on the air and use it.
Okay. What's next, Rich?
Errors.
Okay. Errors, right?
Yep.
One of the very important things that we believe in is, of course, we said that before, you don't have to be perfect, and everybody makes mistakes. And mistakes in CW don't necessarily change the character of what you're trying to communicate. So let's say there's a person that thinks they have to do everything perfectly. Let's say they had a problem sending L's, and their L's were not that good, for example. Let's say their QTH was Philadelphia. If they spelled Philadelphia, right, and instead of an L, they made an F in the middle of the word, right? Do you really think that would make any difference in the decode? Absolutely not. So you just have to relax. Everybody makes mistakes. There's no CW police watching you, and there's nothing to be worried about. And, I tell this story often. A few years ago, and Rich knows who I'm talking about, there was a YL in the class, and she just started out with us, and she was practicing her sending in class, and every time she made a mistake, let's say she made an H instead of an S by adding a dot, she would say the word sorry. So she would send a couple of words, you hear sorry. Another few words, sorry. I stopped the class right there. And I said, that's it. No one's ever going to say sorry again in the Long Island CW Club. That's it. Because there's no reason to feel like that. Just relax. You make a mistake. If you really think you've done the word so bad, you don't even have to send a string of dots or anything like that. Just back up and send the word again. If you really think you have to send the word Philadelphia twice, send it again. If not, move on. Okay, Rich, anything to add to that? No?
No, that's you had it pretty good. Next up is reaching the plateaus, and that's a popular thing. Many people hit this at some point in their learning as they try to increase their speed. And the biggest thing is to when you hit this, don't let it stop you. You have to push through it and practice to get past it. You have to, listen at faster speeds. Push yourself. Don't just stay in a comfort zone where like, well, I'm really good at 10 words a minute, and I'm trying to go up to 10, 11, or 11 or 12 or 13, and I'm starting to make a lot of errors, so I just keep studying at 10. But you're not going to improve that way. The only way you're going to improve is by stepping out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself. Okay, so when you hit one of these plateaus, you have to push a little bit harder, make sure that you don't give up on your studying, and actually increase the speed that you're listening at. That might sound counterproductive, but if you're having trouble, say, copying at 15 words a minute, and you listen to a couple of passes at 20 words a minute or 25, you're going to get even less, sure. But now when you drop back to 15, it's going to be a little bit easier for you. So keep pushing your limits. Don't just settle for a slow speed and say, I can't do this. If you hit one of these plateaus, and not everybody does, but it is a popular or a frequent occurrence, don't let that stop you or slow you down in your learning.
Well, we use in one of our classes periodicity training to break these plateaus. So what do we mean by that? Did you ever see in a baseball game where a batter comes up to the bat and he's swinging two bats, and then he drops one and he's ready to go? Well, he does that because starting off with a heavier bat conditions him at the heavier weight, and then when he uses the lighter weight, he gets around on the ball in his mind a little bit easier. Now, if you're stuck at 15, using periodicity training will push you to 18, and you'll say, well, like Rich said, well, I can't do that. Well, you'll get up there and take whatever you can, and then we'll bring you down to 10 that you can do, and then bring you up to 15. And when you get back up to 15, you'll feel pretty good. So here's my cat here. She always comes. You see the tail. She's always coming up here when I'm talking. So that's how we deal with breaking the plateau. But these plateaus happen by becoming a professional student and not getting on the air, because your white matter pathways that are formed by being challenged by QRM, QRN, and all the typical interferences that you get when you're on the air are not created when you're using monochromatic delivery of your practice. Okay, Rich.
All right, sending. We have some classes dedicated specifically to sending and with different styles of keys, that sort of thing. When we first started, I would monitor the students sending even in the beginners classes, but we have too many students per class now to make that function in the time that we have. So what I usually tell the beginner students is periodically, maybe every 3 or 4 or 5 times that you sit down to practice, instead of taking your pen and paper and copying down what you're hearing, take your key, hopefully a straight key, and an oscillator or your radio on side tone, whatever it is that you use for the tone in your shack. And when the computer program sends out a letter, you parrot it right back, and you try to make your fist, your sending, sound like that computer, because the computer's sending out perfect code. And if you can get that muscle memory, when you hear a K and you just think K and a K comes out of your fingertips into the key, you hear Q and a Q comes out, you hear the number 3 and a 3 comes out. If you can get to that point, that's going to be a good thing. So by practicing against the computer in the beginning, I think that's very beneficial to helping you develop a good fist. You can also record yourself sending something. Maybe every single day, send a blurb, like a paragraph from a magazine or a news article or whatever. And then the next day, send the next paragraph in it. And the third day, send the third paragraph. And after a few weeks, you're going to forget what it was that you sent on day one. But play that back now. Play it, if you record it on your cell phone as an MP3 file, whatever. Play it back and see if you can decode what it was that you sent. Because if you have trouble decoding it, chances are everybody else will also. But we do have a lot of classes that work on sending. And it's, as I mentioned before, it's crucial with the timing, because you have the very first letter we learn, a K, right? That's the letter K. But if I were to send, that's still da da da, but I paused after the first da. Now I'm sending T and A. So if the other person, if I'm trying to send my call sign and the other person is copying TA2, it's not going to work. And I get frustrated because I know what I'm sending, but they're not getting it. So that the timing and your sending, all of that is crucial. And that's why it falls back to learning on a straight key, I think, is good, and being accurate in your sending, okay? Even if you're only comfortable at sending cleanly at 12 words a minute and you make your first contact at 12, that's fine. But, you know, sending, that's how you're communicating with the other person. So you want to be accurate with it so that they understand what it is you're sending.
And, you know, another couple of things, Rich. You know, Rich said you have to relax, and that's why we put this picture up of this wooden fist, because if you're tight and all nervous and everything like that, you're not really going to be able to make the proper sending. But one of the most common things that happen with beginners is that their CW is choppy because they don't really know what it's supposed to sound like. So one of the things that we teach them is to accentuate the dashes. No one's ever going to complain if they hear an accentuated dash. So what do I mean by that? So take K, which is da da da. We would tell them to go da da da, to just accentuate that last dash, because it tends to not only make a better fist, but it also is very helpful to the person who's listening to you, where they can tell where the letters are actually ending. And the accentuating of these dashes at the end are very helpful to beginners, and it changes their entire fist almost instantaneously. Okay, Rich, what do we got next?
Expectation management.
Yeah, this is a military term that was coined by Jim W6JIM. And basically, you have to control your expectations. A lot of people think that they're going to learn CW right away. Well, if you were taking Spanish, which is also an oral language, AURAL, just like CW, you wouldn't learn that right away. It would take some time before you could speak conversationally. So, you know, you have to be patient. Don't pressure yourself. Going to 1 or 2 classes a week, 2 preferably, 15 to 20 minutes a day minimum practice, and then getting on the air in 3 or 4 months, you'll just do fine. And it's good not to push yourself, so you have fun and enjoy the CW journey, right, Rich?
Yep, definitely. I mean, keep it fun. When you sit down to practice, it's also important to make sure that you have a positive attitude. You don't want to sit down after a tough day at work and say, oh, now I got to study the CW. You're never going to learn it that way. You just shot yourself in the foot. So every time you sit down and say, this is something I can do. I want to do this. I can do this. All right. You're going to have a couple of bad days, I'm sure, during your practice where it's just you turn the code practice program on and it's just not making any sense at all. Shut it off and walk away from it. Start up again the next day. Don't push, don't beat yourself over the head with it. Keep it fun and light and enjoyable. And you will end up enjoying it. Don't get burned out from over practicing either. All right, let's see. Have fun. That's what we were talking about. And this is a good example here. If any of you have seen this before, if you haven't, you're going to get a kick out of this. Check this out.
Short wave. Take it down, quick. What's it say?
Ah, shut up.
What'd that mean? You too?
You know, I love this thing. I've seen this thing 1,000 times, and it makes me smile. You know, the CW that they're sending is being done with a straight key. It's 5-letter random letter groups with a perfect fist. And you want to know something, Rich? It's accentuating the dashes too, because, back in the 30s, that's the way you sent CW. This is 1930s CW. It's like something out of a museum. It's amazing. That's
true. Okay. And here's the next one. Howard, I'll let you talk about that, and then I'll start it when you want.
Yeah. We, acquired, we were lucky to acquire from George W2KRM in Long Island a replica of a spark gap machine that actually has real parts in it. That helix coil is really from the 1920s, and it has 1920s oil-filled capacitors. We acquired this so that we could exhibit this at Ham Radio University, but unfortunately, due to COVID, the last two Ham Radio Universities were online, including the one that was just in early January. But take a look at this.
And the audio will be a little bit low when Howard is talking there, but you will hear it, and the RF from it actually gets into the cell phone that was recording it. So check this out.
Yeah, overloads the cell phone.
Here we go, starting George Flanagan's Spark-At machine. I like the way this thing sounds, the way it's heating up. So here we go. I'll send a CQ. Sign WB2UZE. I certainly wouldn't put my finger over there, but it's really cool. Really cool.
Now, unfortunately, that's been sitting in my son's room for 2 years now. But, you know, maybe next year, Rich, will be able to demonstrate it. We'll have to make Jerry will have to make a plexiglass shield for it so nobody puts their finger near that thing, you know?
All right. And the next one here is Howard demonstrating again. This is using old telegraph sounder. Now, of course, he's using international Morse code. They would have been using American Morse code, but it's still Morse code, and you'll get the idea if you've never seen a sounder in action. You want to say anything about it before I started, Howard?
I got it right here.
Okay.
And it's got the same battery, Rich, that you hooked up for me a few years ago. It's right here. So
All
go
right.
ahead.
Okay.
Hello, everyone out there in TV land. This is Howard WB2UZE, and I'm in my shack here where we have mostly modern equipment and my dog Chomper on my lap. But I'm here to demonstrate today a Morse code sounder that's from the late 1800s. It's something that I found in a basement of an old ham shack, and there was a lot of stuff down there, and this was just peeking out at us. We were lucky to find it, and it's in perfect condition. Most hams are really not able to understand CW with clicking. They're all used to tones. But some of us can, and I'm here to demonstrate how it sounds. I'm using a JT38 World War II vintage key, and here's the sounder. So let's send a CQ. That's CQ, CQ, and then from W2LCW. Again. Can even send with my dog licking my hand. There we go.
Yeah, I have a lot of animals in the house here that just love to come and sit with me when I'm doing stuff. So, but Chomper's the dog hates Dexy the cat, unfortunately. She likes him, but he doesn't like her.
All right. And this isn't a video, but you can discuss what that is, Howard.
Actually, that is a video, Rich.
Oh, yes, it is. You're right. Okay, I take that back. I'll start it up.
This is a 1930s instructograph, which was a practice unit for learning CW. And I believe, Rich, did you take your general down with Finkelman downtown Manhattan?
No, I had it all done with VEs. When I got licensed, I just missed having to go into New York City.
I was like 13 at the time, but I believe that that's the type of unit that the FCC was delivering the code tests on.
Yep.
And this thing we got working, not from me, but there were two a gentleman in the club that tore this thing apart and got it to work. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. The next one, types of keys. There's many different types and brands and styles of Morse code keying devices. Some people like to collect them. I'm one of those people. I believe that the amount of keys you have or need is n plus 1, where n is the number you have currently. You can always use another one. I like mostly straight keys. A lot of them are handmade. I like some of the old military keys, but I do have some Begalis, which are kind of like the Cadillac or Rolls Royces of the keys. Very smooth action. I have some old Vibraplex Bugs. But a keying device is actually a very personal thing. It's something that all of your friends like, you may not be comfortable using. And before you go out and plunk down a couple $100s for some of these keys, I would strongly encourage you to try them if you possibly can before you actually purchase one. So if a friend has a key that they think is the best thing since sliced bread, we'll go over to their house one day or to a shack and try it out. Maybe they'll be nice enough to actually let you borrow it a little bit and try it for a week to see if you like it and get your own. But there's many different styles and flavors of keys. Everything from the straight keys, like you see the Begali Blade, and even just a simple straight key. There's many different styles of them, how they're hinged, where the contacts are, in front of the pivot, behind the pivot, where they're using ball bearings and a trunnion bar, or in a case of the Begali Blade, is using a piece of metal that's flexing as the hinge. There are many different styles of that, but try them out. See what's comfortable for you. I have about 40 different keys right now. As I said, mostly straight keys, but I also practice with both hands. And the Begali HST that you see in the upper left-hand corner there, that's the key that I send the best with left-handed, the best and the fastest. So I try to use that on field day because then I can send and log at the same time when I'm by myself in a tent at 2 a.m. So it's a good thing to try to do that. With paddles, there's a single lever paddle, there's dual lever paddles. If you have a dual lever paddle, then you can use an iambic keyer or squeeze keying. But try them out and see if it's something that you like before you actually put your money down on it. Howard?
Yeah, we had a presentation at Ham Radio University, which you can find on YouTube, and some of the members did show and tell with their favorite keys, and it was a really interesting thing. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to go, so I am just going to take this opportunity to show one here, which is pretty cool. This is a key that was given to me, and it's actually homebrew, and it has a micro switch in the middle. Can you see that, Rich?
You're not covering the whole screen right now because I'm sharing the
okay.
presentation.
Yeah, Alan gave this to me, It's
nice.
Pretty cool. Okay, let's go. What's next?
All right, the next one is, come on, there we are. Who we are.
Okay. The Long Island CW Club, this is already outdated. We had 140 people come in the past 48 hours to become members. Right now, we're well over 2,400 members, still in 50 states, and we picked up a country this week too. So this is a little bit outdated. But the most important thing is that we run 75 classes per week on Zoom. If you go to the next slide,
Okay.
Rich.
Yep.
And, when we talk about having fun with Morse code, we built the classes of teaching Morse code around fun. Now, what's the fun? Every day we have different forums, which are live presentations with outside speakers on different topics. Monday night, radio and related technology. We'll have speakers talk about anything from the disappearance of Amelia Earhart to putting undersea cables underneath the Atlantic Ocean. And I learned, Rich, did you know I don't know if you saw that one, but did you know that they had undersea cables as far back as the Civil War?
Across the Atlantic? No, that
Yes,
I wasn't
yeah.
aware.
Yeah, I wasn't aware about that. That's amazing.
You guys should go to the French Cable Museum in Orleans, Mass. It's fascinating.
Yeah, isn't that stuff fascinating? It's really amazing, Larry, huh? So,
really is.
or somebody could come and talk about, the SETI program, or we've had walkthroughs through vintage computer museums. So that's on Monday night. Also on Monday night, we have a program, The Doctor is In, where Greg, WA1JXR, fields all types of questions on anything you want to ask him. And you want to know something, he's got the answers for everything. It's unbelievable. Wednesday, we will have CW Makers, where they actually build things and talk about kit building. Friday night, we'll have fun with CW, where they'll send jokes and CW back and forth to each other. We also embrace internet CW over what they call V-band, V like victory. Saturday, we have a lot of forums, for example, Boat Anchor Forum at 1 o'clock, Portable Operations Forum, Sunday, the Antenna Forum. This is only part of it. So that's kind of the fun, and that's the community that we strive to build, so that when you're studying, you have enjoyment built around it. It's not just rote learning. So that was really how we built the club. What's next, Rich?
The rest is the last slide.
Oh, really? We're done, huh?
Yep.
You guys are released from bondage. We're done already, huh?
All right, let me stop the screen share there. But yeah, it's an amazing thing to see how this club has grown. Many of the ideas, the presentations, even the classes that we have, the breadth of the classes has been from suggestions from our members. Members who said, hey, I want to learn more about mag loop antennas maybe, and we had people step up and do a presentation on mag loop antennas. Or somebody came along and said, hey, I have a whole bunch of, say, 10-tech gear. I'd like to do a talk on that, and we'll let them do that. And all of the presentations have been recorded and saved in our Dropbox file. And our members have access to literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of presentations from past meetings and that. So there's a wealth of information here that I think is very unique. We're certainly not the first CW club out there, but we had a different, I think, a very different way of approaching it and teaching it, and it's been very successful for us and for the students who have signed up and taken our classes.
Yeah, well, that's what we have for you, Larry.
Sounds good. Do we have questions? If anybody has questions, you can raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Yeah, we love questions. We prefer questions than talking a blue streak at you guys for 50 minutes.
Oh, this is
very interesting. We don't bite either. Rich does, but I don't. Oh, look who's here, Ann. Great to see you.
Oh, I'm the person that said sorry that they always tell me.
And I talk about you on every presentation. I mean, you were even, but I never mention you by name because, but you've been in every presentation for 3 years now.
You guys know this, and so anyways, the reason I joined the Island CW Club was because Rich came to our club before, and showed all his collection of keys. And before we left that presentation, my husband, KU1N, had bought his Bengali HST and ordered it during the presentation, which he sometimes allows me to touch, but God forbid I adjust the tension. So, yeah. So anyways, I love Long Island CW Club. I have to tell you, last year during COVID, it saved my life. The 2020 class where we worked on, by the end of 2020, getting to 20 words a minute was super fun. It met twice a week with people from all over the world, Thailand, Australia, all over the US. And the group helped me through multiple hand surgeries and was very patient with the fact that I didn't use a straight key because of my trigger fingers in my carpal tunnel really don't allow me to use a straight key functionally without my fingers locking up. And I just love the club. Everybody's been really kind, really nice, and there's a lot of presentations I went to. The presentation on soda by the guy that had a goat carrying all his
Oh,
equipment.
I talk about him all the time too. Yeah, and yeah.
It was super fun. The antenna classes are super fun. They got me to build my Morserino, which I use every class I go to. I practice everybody's call signs who's on the screen and their names and see if I can do the whole screen without making any errors. There's just been so many great classes and so much fun for me, and it's the reason why I was able to participate in WBZ, and 13 Colonies, which Larry organized, and I operated for CW. So it's been a long process, long journey, but too much fun, and I've met the most wonderful people. And I have to tell you, not one person has said one mean thing. And being a YL, it's a little tricky because sometimes the jokes in the beginning were a little bit surprising for me. And it's just people have been welcoming and wonderful and great. And seems to me there's a couple people in this group. Seems to me, Brian, you're here, that I tried to get you to join Long Island CW a long time ago. So anyways,
Well,
that's all.
Thank you very much for that very nice feedback, Ann. And I'll tell you again, and to everybody listening here, I am dying for Ann to become an instructor. I know she's too busy to do it, but she is the epitome of the type of person that we respect and love to have in our club, and somebody who worked very hard and became advanced very quickly, and she would be a dynamic teacher. And you know, Ann, the offer that I made to you is permanent. Any type of class you want to teach at any time, you just send me an email and you're in.
Actually, sometime we're going to do one on what people have done ergonomically to compensate for their disabilities. One day
Oh,
I
that would
do that, but not yet. I'm busy right now, and I do appreciate your thoughtfulness. But I will, anybody who wants to make their first CW contact, it's my absolute favorite thing to do. I'm doing SSTs on Friday night, and on Sundays, I set it 15 words a minute, but I will slow as anyone wants. I'll take an email from anybody. My favorite thing is to be first CW contact for people. I love to do that. So let me know. I don't have time to teach a class, but I would gladly practice with anyone if they send me.
You know, I'll tell you something, Ann, what you just said about teaching people who have issues and need ergonomic help. I'm very interested in that, because a tenet of the club, as you know, is to do things for people that are not as fortunate as us. We have a pilot program now teaching CW to the autistic community, and we've taught 3 autistic individuals successfully so far. And we're in the process of developing a vibrational haptic device to deliver CW to the hands of people who have hearing issue, and we're on our 2nd prototype already. And we have classes for people who are visually impaired and people who are blind. So, you know, something like this of teaching ergonomics to people would really fit in with something that's very important to the club, Ann.
I think Jürgen may have had a question.
No, I don't really have a question. I was just wondering, Howard, have you ever looked at the Kia that I built that's also on our HCRA website, the OptoKia that uses optical contacts and no mechanical contacts that actually won the first prize in the ARL Kia competition?
I remember showing that at the meeting that I was at. That was a fascinating design. Really, really cool.
You know, I'd like to hear more about this, Jürgen. How can I contact you? Are you okay in the on QRZ?
Yeah, but you find the whole actually the whole drawings and even manufacturing drawings on our HCRC website.
Okay. What website is that? The website to the club here?
Yeah, it's hcra.org, and I think it's under tech projects.
Yeah,
Okay.
tech project and then Optokia.
Okay.
That might be a good presentation for the Monday night class. It might be interesting to invite Jürgen to see if Bob is, that might be something fun.
Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't get my video camera to work, and it says I have to reboot my computer. I didn't want to do this, otherwise I could show it. But there's everything on there, and what really surprised me, because I have not seen any design with optical contacts, and the ARL just didn't even mention that.
Yeah. I'm going to take a serious look at this, Jürgen. Thank you.
There was actually that was the ARL didn't want to publish that one, so also won the first prize. But however, the German amateur radio magazine published an article about that.
Okay, very good, excellent.
Anybody else have any questions? Not a single question from anybody else. Rich, go ahead. You got a
question? I'll just. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm using LCW online, and you mentioned in an earlier slide characters you kind of get mixed up, K&R or other ones.
Right.
For me, it's equals and /. I always get them mixed up, and any characters around them I tend to get wrong. All the other ones are fine. Is there anything special you do when you have a situation like that, or just keep on practicing?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the equal. I think that's like the BT pro sign, I think, right? Is that what you're talking about? The equal sign? Okay, yeah. When you come across 2 characters or 3 characters that are giving you a problem, pull them out of the group and work. Just set up. I think you could probably set LCW to just give you a few whatever characters you choose out of their list. You should be able to do that anyway. Or there are other apps where you can do that, where you're just putting in specific characters and you want to hear those. Work at them until you can differentiate them just among themselves. Then add a few letters in that you do know, and work at it again until it's no longer a problem, and then keep going. All right. Yeah. It's like I said, if you have a carpenter and he's making a nice coffee table for his living room, and he has a rough spot, he's not just going to put stain on it and put it out there and have everybody see that rough spot. He's going to get the sandpaper out and work at that rough spot until it's just as smooth as the rest of it. And that's the same thing. When you have trouble with a few characters, work at it until it's no longer a problem. Don't keep trying to pick them out of a whole group and missing it every time. Pull them out by their own. Master them, and then slowly add the others back in again.
Well, okay. I can solve half your problem on this thing, Rich. Forget about that equal sign. I don't even know what it is in 57 years of CW. I've never BT, heard it, and I've never used it. Oh, you mean BT? Well, yeah. we don't call BT is just BT is just a pause, but you don't have to learn that.
Right.
I look at it. I look at it as a V with a da in the at the beginning, right?
There's no equal sign ever used in CW. And if you did it, you're going to cause yourself a headache because no one's going to know what you're saying.
Yes.
And also, like, depending on where in the queue so it falls, it kind of makes sense what it is. Like if somebody is sending their call sign, then you hear something you didn't quite get what that was, and then you hear like another prefix. Like when I was in France, I had to send F5 or F6 stroke K2 UPS. So that's where that stroke came in. Or if somebody's operating QRP, I'd be K2 UPS stroke QRP. So when you learn where certain characters are used more often, and that might help, when it stands out for you. I still have trouble with B's and 6s, particularly come field day or if it's a big contest and the Canadians. The Californians are coming in. B's and 6s still, I have to really work at that to get through it. But, you get past it. And if you don't get it, you ask them to repeat it. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Ron?
So I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Something you said earlier. I was originally licensed in New York in the 60s, and I did have to go into the federal building into Manhattan to take both the written exam and the CW test at the time. And I absolutely confirmed they were using that device to send the CW. I know, because it took me like 3 times to pass it at 13 words per minute.
I heard it was a very intimidating experience to go down there. I didn't have to do that, fortunately, but I heard from those who did and had to face. Was it Mr. Finkelstein? Was that
No, Finkelman. He still
Finkelman, yeah.
that name still invokes fear in people that are older than 65 years old. Ron, you know that.
It sounds like he enjoyed putting that fear on people too.
Yeah, he'd be smoking a cigar in front of a 13-year-old. You know.
And that's about how old I was. And God, I remember going in there, and probably for the second or third time, there's a bunch of people there trying to, pass their general exam. And first you have to pass the code before they even gave you the written exam. Yeah. And so, I took the code test, and I sat there and I waited. Must have waited like 45 minutes. I think he just forgot about me, or maybe he was doing it on purpose. I don't know. But eventually,
sounds like the FCC office in Boston. That's where I passed two of my tests.
Yeah, he said, okay, yeah, you were the only one who passed the code. Here's the written exam. So thank you for bringing that up. It's a deeply buried memory that now bubbled to the surface.
All right, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Yeah, that's a very cool machine. Very cool. That's why we wanted to get it fixed.
Any other questions from everybody? No, we're good. Howard, Rich, thank you very much for coming out tonight, and thank everybody for joining us. This is a HCRA, Hamilton County Radio Association Share the Knowledge class. We've got another one coming up in a couple of weeks on D-Star, and a couple more coming up in February too, along with our regular meetings. But thanks for coming out tonight.
If anybody is interested in joining us or wants more information, the website is www.longislandcwclub.org, O-R-G, all one long word, longislandcwclub.org. Or you can email me. My email is richktups@gmail.com. And Howard's email, which if you want to email him.
Well, that's good enough, Rich. Between
the website, you can contact us through there too, so it's not a problem. All right.
All right, everybody.
Thank you all for having us. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, our pleasure to be here. You have a great club, nice bunch of people, and it's very nice, Larry, that you're doing this educational thing. It's very valuable today. Thank you for having us.
Oh, well, thank you guys for coming north. We got you guys from Long Island. We got people from Eastern Mass, from the Greenfield area, Northern Mass, Springfield area, all over the place here. It's ham radio is spreading the word around the world. So,
okay.
Hope to hear you guys on the bands.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Good night. Good night.
All right.